A message I get pretty commonly via our text app is from people wanting to start their own business similar to the shop. A lot of people will ask me, like, how much money do they need? How much money did we start the shop with? How were the first few years? How long can you expect to not get paid? Things like that. I thought I'd make a little video to address this because I'm sure it's a question that a lot of people have. I mean, it's a question that I have often going past some businesses, and it's like, how does this business operate? How do they stay in business? Or how does this clothing company do it? And I've touched base on this in videos before in the past. And it can be a dangerous, slippery slope to get into of trying to compare yourself to another person's business or another person's sort of business structure or however they get started. But the advice I'd give to people starting a business, clothing, whatever, anything, is probably to have, a good year's worth of financials just for yourself, for your living expenses, your rent, your food, that sort of stuff. Figure out how much it'll cost you to live for a year, bare bones style, and make sure you have that on hand. Make sure you have money available for your business, but make sure that you have money to live. Now, I'm not saying sell your house and stuff like that. I actually, when I think back to the position I was in 2012, 2011, it's actually quite upsetting to see that I sold my house and that I don't have a lot of the security that I felt I had back then. And it actually really gets me down to look where I live now versus where I lived then. I actually had a conversation with a buddy of mine about money insecurity. When I think a lot of people, when they watch YouTube or Instagram or whatever, they see the life that somebody can live and they're like, oh, fuck, you got motorcycles and you go on trips and you do this and you do that. And you're like, you have to remember that a lot of that is the business money. It's not my money. A lot of my personal money has gone into the business to make it operate, but now the business has some money to operate, but I have very little. It's embarrassing to say. It's not something you want to say on the fucking internet. But it's like, I don't have a lot of money personally anymore. So unless you're like a really rich person, you have to think about this stuff. There are people in our industry, clothing companies and store-wise, that are multimillionaires, and it just doesn't matter. You can lose $1 million a year. You've got so much money that it doesn't matter. But for a guy like me, it really matters. You realize how quickly $100,000 is gone. It's just like, poof, gone. And, luckily, I had a really great job, which allowed me to get a house and have some savings and stuff like that. But I got rid of all that so that I could do this. And for about, 4 years, I paid for all of my salaries for my employees out of my own pocket. And for years, I paid for trips out of my own pocket, and I paid for all the product out of my own pocket to get to this point. You have to be willing to work really fucking hard. You have to be willing to basically lose everything, which I think is a terrible thing to say. It's kind of like the no plan B line that people talk about, but, and it takes a really long time for it to build up. We've been going 10 years, and I feel like only now are we starting to get enough exposure from people to work with enough people that it's starting to work. I'm still not pulling a consistent wage out of the shop, but it's tough because it's like, it's something I really love doing. So this is a really difficult part of a conversation where, God, these videos are really hard to make. It gets so long-winded because there's just so much stuff to say. It's not easy to talk about business stuff in, a minute and a half for a reel or 4 minutes for a TikTok video. There's so much that goes into it and so much you have to think about before opening the business of how you want to operate to make it successful. There's the money element that you have to have so much more than you think. There's the the success of the business is going to be a lot more difficult than you think. I think we overestimate the chances of success, and we minimize the risk of failure. I think it's really important if you want to start a business like this, number one, get a really clear idea of what you want to do. Get some money in the bank that you can live off of. Also get your operating money. Probably have a lot more than you expect you need. I would say probably like, if you think you're going to open with, let's just say an arbitrary number, $30,000, try to open with 60. If you think you need $50,000 for the year to live, try to get 100. And it's sort of like everything else, like over expect your expenses and under expect your profits, so that when you go over in expenses and you come under in profits, you can still balance it out and still make it work. And then you just got to work your fucking ass off. If you guys do have any questions that you'd want me to answer about working a business, about operating a business, about getting started, about what did before and how it rolled into this, or anything, just let me know. Ask me questions. You can reach me on TikTok. Instagram at the Shop Vancouver. You can text me 604-229-2134. You can email me vip@theshopvancouver.com. Any questions? I'd be happy to try to answer them for you. Again, it's a lot of these things are really tough to answer because they're not sort of like A. It's a lot of like, well, A, but if B, but if C, but if D. There's a lot of things that go into every single little decision that you make. So I think that's number one. This is video number one of this. How much do you need, or how much do you need to open this stuff? A lot more than you think. And it's not something you can do with $1,000. It's a pretty expensive business, but fuck it. But anyway, you know what I'm saying. If you guys got any questions at all that you guys need me to answer, you think might be interesting about the shop, we got 10 years of business here. I'm a single solo person in this business, so I'd love to try to help you guys out and answer as many questions as I can. So let me know. Okay.